team, I want to share with you 5 key lessons that I learned as a 19-year-old that have now shaped me as a coach, as a business owner, but also shaped me as a man. There are times in our life where we are we know we can look back and we have chapters that we have probably defined us. There are phases of our life that have caused us to pivot, to evolve, to grow. But there's no doubt about it. At 19, I didn't know what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. That was pretty obvious. I think that's quite a standard thing. I didn't know if I wanted to be a coach. I didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't know if I wanted to be a physio. I definitely wanted to be in some form of performance training. I'd grown up playing multiple sports. I was still competing at a relatively high level in GB level for inline hockey, etc. I was traveling Europe and the world at that time with it, and I didn't know what that work looked like for me. I didn't know what that career was going to be for me. But I had this opportunity which was made for me, where I had it was a full-time job working at the school that I used to study at. Half my working week was in the PE department, setting up classes, packing down the equipment, kind of being a general dog's body. The other half was spent working in the physio department, and this was in the gym on site of the school, which was amazing to say the least. But more importantly, it was designed for the LNC, which was a specific part of the school which was there for the learning disability children or the students. A broad range of physical and kind of mental kind of disabilities, and it was an amazing opportunity where I could work alongside the physio department, the physio staff, and more importantly, working with the lead physio at the time, which was Anne Shipsey, who unknowingly was going to set me on track for the rest of my career. The exposure I had in that short amount of time, I only did that for a year, 2 years, I believe, in that role. The exposure I got to understanding the complexity of working with people, with young adults, young teenage children who had a complexity to them, obviously because of the conditions that they were born with, cystic fibrosis, through autism, through to muscular dystrophy. I mean, we're talking about some of the most complex physical conditions that we have to, these children and people have to face in this day and age. But the physical benefits of following an individualized training program, the work that the physio team led by Anne were doing, and that I was then supporting and helping and keeping these individuals accountable to get them onto treadmills, with using hoists and getting them actively engaging their bodies, training their bodies to a certain degree, helping them with their physical rehabilitation procedures, etc. Daily things that they had to do to maintain a level of relative health for themselves, unknowingly was setting me on my ways for the rest of my career. But this complexity, understanding the psychology element of this, the understanding the physiological elements of this, that there's an individualized qualities to every one of us, that we have to understand that we're not all going to operate the same way. We all have different considerations, and that was set in stone from day one. And again, unknowingly didn't know this, but it really gave me an insight into this multidisciplinary team approach where, myself, a young coach, not unsure of what he wanted to do, working alongside seasoned, experienced physiotherapists, working with, again, other doctors, etc. along the way in terms of the medication that was being given, etc. Gaining a greater understanding in terms of working in a gym environment, working in a hydro pool, then going out into the outside world, into the public on daytime excursions. But then also, you can understand the complexity of working with those individuals. But then also moving into the mainstream school and working in the teaching department. Again, similarly dealing with different types of psychology, different types of training environments, different types of kind of teaching environments. But again, all giving me these different kind of exposure to these different skill sets. But what I want to share with you guys are some of these 5 key lessons that as I reflect, I was definitely exposed to. So number 1, you will never know everything. I think from that very moment onwards, I was humbled by the fact that there is the complexity of these young adults, these children, that they had to have doctor input, they needed consultant input, they needed physio input, they needed parental input, they needed training input. There's so many other inputs, education in terms of their education that they're receiving at the school. There's so many different inputs that were required, but they all needed this kind of multidisciplinary approach in terms of the people around them all working together to help these individuals get the most out of their education, most out of their health, out of their life, but to understand that it takes a team. And this has stayed with me, ever since as soon as I moved into, from this point onwards, guys, I went and got my sports science degree. I then started to obviously coach and train people a lot more. I started to got my personal training qualifications, strength and conditioning qualifications, but I started to develop this kind of understanding. But the whole way through it was embedded, because I always consulted with physios. I always, wherever we were in the world, we moved to Australia after a time, and straight away get in contact with the local local physios and the clients I was working with there. There was constant referral and back and forth with the physios or the doctors or the, whatever the considerations needed to be, the surgeons, etc. This understanding that you'll never know everything was so powerful, and I unknowingly had this from day one. And it potentially isn't the case for a lot of people. There's a pressure in this day and age where people feel like they need to know everything, and that because of the internet you can get a certification and you can learn about everything and anything. But do you need to? Is that the most effective use of your time? These are the conversations that I haven't spent much time thinking about, because I've always gone, no, I love having other professionals within our team. Right now we've got running coaches, triathlon coaches, physiotherapists in-house, we've got a doctor in-house, we've got a pelvic health physio in-house, we've got a psychologist in-house. So we all work together to get to provide the best service we possibly can at Strength Endurance. But it's something that we've always done. The gyms and studios we've had in the past have always had a physio on site or next door to. Is that coincidence? No. It was certainly something that we just felt that we always needed to. So you will never know everything, and I'm okay with that. And that takes a great deal of stress off me knowing that, because although I will never stop being hungry for more information around this stuff, it's important to know that where you need to pass over that responsibility, because there's people out there who are going to be better at what you do. Doesn't mean you just let go of that individual. You then work together because you've got attributes that we need to then push forward on the other side. So this comprehensive multidisciplinary approach is the future of the training, and this is what I guess was set in stone from day one. Number 2, it's important to ask for help. You can imagine being in those situations, being a young man, pretty naive, not sure what he wanted to do at that time. I sure as hell was going to be asking questions all the time and asking for help, because there was a complexity to the work of these students that there was a level of fear, right? I didn't know what I was dealing with. I didn't have that level of education yet, but I was willing to learn, but I had to keep asking. And it's something that I always ask of every person we work with, at Strength Endurance, is keep asking questions, keep learning, because we will never know everything. But you've got to keep asking for help. You've got to but as a company, as a coach as well, you've got to keep making sure that door is always open, that you are creating that dialogue and that level of feedback or availability for feedback. And that's something that we try to create on multiple different channels, because everyone operates on different channels. But it's so important to ask for help, because no matter whether you're in business, training, rehab, whatever it is, we've got to be, we've got to have this ability to ask for help and pivot at the right times, because that's how we progress. So that was built into me from day one. Number 3 is you will learn quicker and deeper as part of a team. So the going alone, you may go fast, but going together, you'll go further. It's amazing again in this day and age where you can feel like you'll move quicker if you go on alone, because you can invest your mind and body into yourself. You can, with the internet, the exposure of information and education we now have, can be seemingly easier or perceivingly easier to go ahead on your own. But actually, if you look at the anecdotal evidence around us, in terms of business development, in terms of health and performance development, it's not the case, is it? People are building teams around them to provide the best service, to develop the best results for themselves, for their companies, and it's that team approach. Because we are greater together than we are apart. The hive mind, especially when that mind is all working together in synergy. So there's no doubt about it. Again, because of the complexity of high performance training, in terms of high volume training, where we work with obviously ultra distance runners, cyclists, we work with multi-sport athletes, we work with hikers, climbers. We work with so many different types of individuals who have high expectations and they want to compete at a high level. They've got high demands to their life. You're going to struggle to try and meet all those demands on your own as a singular coach, and that's something that it's never been in question with what we do here at SFE. That hive mind, that multidisciplinary approach has always been the case, because we want to provide the best service, but we also want to give the best advice, and that's always going to come from this hive mind of a level of education and experience. So you're always going to go further as part when you've had this team approach, and because you're covering all the bases, and there's a depth to the understanding and a depth to the support that will only come from working with multiple individuals. Number 4, you don't always need to know the full journey ahead. Just keep taking those necessary steps. I think it can be quite a daunting thing sometimes. And again, at 19 years old, no idea really. I just knew the kind of the steps I wanted to be taking. But certainly that's I feel like it was a great thing that I've constantly kept doing. I didn't exactly always know which way I wanted to go. I qualified as a teacher. I did my sports science degree. I did multiple qualifications. I even qualified as an electrician because my dad was an electrician and I grew up as an electrician's mate most of my young adult life. I was taking steps. I didn't fully know which way I wanted to go. But actually, when I now at 38 years old, I look back and go, actually, all of this has accumulated into this place now where I'm at, where I am very confident and comfortable in what I'm doing. But it's because of all the steps that I've taken. And I think that really relates to anyone in performance as well, or injury rehab. You just got to keep taking those steps. It's not always easy to know the journey you're making in terms of your profession, in terms of your development, your performance development. But take those steps. Keep taking those logical steps. Find out more about nutrition. Find out more about recovery. Find out more about how to periodize and individualize your training. Find out more about your blood health. Find out more about how how you can be better integrating everything into your life, optimizing your stress management, etc. These are all things that you just keep learning, keep developing, keep asking questions. Like these are all that's the mantra I would ask of you. And number 5, appreciate your body. Appreciate the complexity and how important it is in terms of the pursuit of your own health and performance. When you have worked with the severity of the human condition, when I've seen how difficult some people's lives are in terms of managing their own health, where they have to have external health professionals helping them manage their life. That was so set into me from such an early age that has stayed with me. Even now, health before performance, because even though you can champion performance, you want to get someone to the best of their abilities. If they then achieve that within the next 12 months, but yet then the next 2 to 3 years they are then systemically broken, you have failed them. And that is something that we will never let someone do. We are always wanting to make sure that individual is building appropriately so they can not only podium, succeed, achieve their goals, but they've got such a healthy relationship with their body, their mind, the way they train, their training lifestyle, that they can do it forever. They have the tools to do it forever. And again, not to sound corny, but that is the most important thing, because now in this endurance space that we're in, we're seeing people who are so broken that potentially they may never be able to perform at the levels they want to again. And it's because they have never been guided like this. They've potentially never been, they've lacked that appreciation for the human body, or never been helped to understand or to appreciate their body on that level, to understand the blood health, their nutritional requirements, their energy availability, their hormonal health, the way it integrates into their lifestyle, the way they can actually monitor and manage their own stress management by integrating quality training in and around their own lifestyle, so that you're not living in anxiety and pressure. So appreciate the body, appreciate the complexity of life. Though that is without doubt still sits with me right now. So there you go, guys. 5 key lessons I learned as a 19-year-old that definitely still sit with me as a middle-aged man with 2 young boys, and running a great business. And but it's I thought there's a lot of value in sharing those. But reflect, guys. What are the steps? What's allowed you to be where you are today? The steps you've taken, but what things have you learned about yourself along the way that probably still define you now? So, all right, guys. Speak to you soon.